In a tall glass office building in Middletown, Connecticut, standing 40 floors high, Cheryl Miller stood by a large window on the top floor. It was December 25th, at 4 p.m. She quietly watched as the falling snow covered the busy Wallingford, turning it into a peaceful, silver-white world. Her desk was piled with reports about investment performance for the last part of the year. Her office walls were covered with awards. At 37 years old, Cheryl was one of the best senior analysts at the investment bank. "Will everything go well tomorrow?" she muttered with a sigh, her usual confidence fading for a moment. It had been 16 years since her father passed away. Since then, Cheryl had thrown herself into her work to survive. Her $180,000 salary and carefully saved money showed how hard she had worked. A notification popped up on her phone. It was an Instagram post from her brother, Timothy. He was showing off a brand new Rolex with the caption, "Life is great." Cheryl frowned. Another new watch? Her brother was spending their father's inheritance as if it would never run out. His wife, Madison, was the same, posting pictures of expensive bags and accessories almost every day. Their mother, Betty, and stepfather, John, also lived a life of luxury in an upscale home in Kentucky. The night before, Cheryl had gotten a call from her mother, another request for money. "Cheryl, listen." Her mother's voice had a sharp tone. "Timothy wants to buy a new car. He needs money for the down payment." "All right, I'll send it," Cheryl said, already used to these demands. She had been paying for her parents' extravagant lifestyle and helping her brother financially for years. From her desk drawer, she pulled out a photo. It was from the last Christmas she spent with her father. The picture had been taken in the hospital. Even though he looked weak, he had a warm smile. "Dad, I'm trying my best," Cheryl whispered to the photo before shifting her eyes to a reservation confirmation beside it. She had booked 36 suites at Skytop Gazebo, a luxury resort in the Aspen Gondola, for the Christmas holiday. Each suite cost $1,000 per night, adding up to nearly $15,000. It was a big expense, even for her. But for Cheryl, this trip wasn't just a holiday. It was her last chance to fix things with her family. She was covering all the costs and making time for them, hoping something would change. Her office phone rang. It was Skytop Gazebo calling to confirm final details for the stay starting tomorrow. Cheryl sat up straight, shifting into her usual professional tone. "Yes, this is Cheryl. About tomorrow's plans." As she spoke, she glanced out the window again. The winter afternoon felt heavy with both excitement and worry. In the middle of her room, a Louis Vuitton suitcase lay half-packed. On the bed, a dark green cashmere sweater was neatly folded, the one she planned to wear the next day. It wasn't a $35,000 designer piece, but it was high quality and simple, just like her taste in life. "Is this the right choice?" she murmured, holding the sweater against her chest as she looked in the mirror. Her sister-in-law Madison always wore the latest luxury brands. Her mother had also developed a liking for flashy outfits, matching her stepfather John's extravagant lifestyle. Just then, her phone rang again. It was Mark. "Is everything going as planned?" His voice was warm, but had a hint of concern. "Mostly," Cheryl replied, sounding a little tired. "I've given special instructions to the staff at Skytop Gazebo. If anything happens, they'll let me know right away." Mark was a well-known hotel owner in the U.S., and Skytop Gazebo was one of his luxury resorts. They had met 3 years ago at an investors' conference and had slowly built a strong connection. "Thank you, but everything will be fine," Cheryl said as she walked back to the window. "This time, things will be different. This trip will change something." After the call, she sat down on the sofa in her living room. On the coffee table lay a photo, her last moment with her father. 16 years ago, in a white hospital room, her frail father had gently held her hand and said, "You're strong. You're the only one I can trust to take care of this family." Those words had stayed with her. They had pushed her to study hard, graduate with top grades, and climb her way up in the finance world. Cheryl worked just as hard as her male coworkers and earned the position of senior analyst at an investment bank by her early 30s. Meanwhile, her brother, Timothy, had dropped out of college after their father passed away. With the support of his stepfather, he continued to live off their father's inheritance. After getting married, Timothy and his wife, Madison, maintained a luxurious lifestyle. Cheryl's phone vibrated with a message from Timothy. "You're picking me up tomorrow morning, right? Don't oversleep." Even in text, his usual arrogant tone was clear. Cheryl replied briefly, "Of course." She had mixed feelings about using her own car for the trip. Timothy usually used high-end taxi services and rarely drove himself. Looking at the time, she saw it was already past 11 p.m. She needed to pick up her family early the next morning. With a sigh, she started packing the rest of her luggage. Her heartbeat quickened slightly, maybe from excitement, maybe from nerves. She looked at her father's photo one last time. His warm smile seemed to encourage her. "Tomorrow will go well," she whispered before heading to her bedroom. But even in bed, it was hard to fall asleep, as excitement and worry swirled in her mind. The next morning, Christmas Eve, Middletown was covered in a sparkling layer of fresh snow. The clock showed 7 a.m. Cheryl woke up before her alarm. "Today's the day," she told herself, taking a deep breath as she got out of bed. She had woken up 25 minutes earlier than planned, which was actually a good thing. She wanted to be fully ready before picking up her family. Standing in front of the large bathroom mirror, Cheryl carefully applied her makeup. Around her neck, she wore a single diamond necklace, a keepsake from her father. Her outfit was simple yet elegant, a reflection of who she was. Perfect. She looked at her reflection. The confidence she had built over 37 years and the nervousness about the day ahead mixed together in her expression. In the underground parking garage of her luxury apartment building, everything was quiet. Most residents were still asleep, enjoying their Christmas Eve morning. Cheryl's black Mercedes-Benz S660 shined under the dim garage lights as she got into the driver's seat and started the car. The navigation screen displayed her first stop, her mother and stepfather's upscale apartment on the Upper West Side. After picking them up, she would head to Timothy and Madison's new home in Albany. The roads were mostly empty, but the fresh snow made driving tricky. Cheryl gripped the wheel carefully, ready to start the day. Would this trip finally bring her family closer? She could only hope. When Cheryl arrived at the Upper West Side, her mother, Betty, was already waiting outside the apartment. She was dressed in a bright red coat and holding a large Gucci bag. Her stepfather, John, got into the back seat without saying a word. "Good morning, Cheryl." Her mother's voice sounded forced, like she was greeting a chauffeur instead of her daughter. Next, Cheryl drove to Timothy and Madison's house in Albany. They had recently moved to a wealthy neighborhood, even though there were rumors that their inheritance was running low. But they still lived in luxury, keeping up appearances. "You're late." Timothy's voice was full of arrogance, as always. Madison stood next to him in a brand new Gucci coat, holding a matching bag. They both looked like they had just stepped out of a fashion magazine. With everyone in the car, Cheryl took the wheel and drove carefully. Timothy sat in the passenger seat, scrolling through his phone, probably posting another flashy update on social media. Inside the car, the atmosphere was tense. Apart from a few quiet whispers between Betty and Madison, there was barely any conversation. After 3 hours of driving, the snowy peaks of the Rocky Mountains came into view. The breathtaking scenery helped ease some of Cheryl's tension. You can see it now," Timothy suddenly said. Through the snow-covered trees, the grand skytop gazebo appeared. The luxurious hotel, designed in Italian Renaissance style, blended beautifully with the winter landscape. A massive Christmas tree decorated the front entrance, glowing with sparkling lights. Expensive cars pulled up one after another, and wealthy families stepped out. Cheryl parked near the entrance, and a uniformed bellboy approached the car. Just then, everything changed. "You've worked hard to get us here." Timothy's cold voice filled the car. Cheryl turned in her seat, looking at the back row. Timothy's face held a smirk she had never seen before. Betty and John avoided eye contact, while Madison gave a small, knowing smile. A strange, uneasy feeling crept into Cheryl's chest. "What do you mean?" Her voice shook slightly. "The driver's job ends here," Timothy said smoothly. "This hotel is for us, the real family only." Cheryl froze. It felt like the temperature inside the car had dropped to freezing. "I made the reservations," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Oh, the reservations?" Timothy sneered. "They've already been changed, just to our names." Her mother looked uneasy, but said nothing. John stared out the window, uninterested. Madison didn't even bother to hide her cruel grin. One by one, they all stepped out of the car, leaving Cheryl sitting there in shock. Timothy motioned for the bellboy to take their luggage inside. Cheryl's hands trembled as she slowly took out her smartphone. She scrolled to Mark's number and pressed call. After a few rings, his calm voice answered on the other end. "Hello, Cheryl?" "Mark, cancel the reservations." Cheryl's voice was steady, surprisingly calm. "All of them, please." There was a brief silence on the other end. Then, as if understanding everything, Mark replied, "Got it. I'll take care of it right away." Just then, a hotel staff member in a black uniform approached the front desk. Against the snowy white backdrop, the dark uniform stood out sharply. Cheryl watched everything through the car window. "I'm sorry, but we can't find your reservation," the staff member informed them. Timothy's smug smile disappeared. Betty frantically dug through her purse, as if searching for an answer. For the first time, John turned to face the front, looking unsettled. "There must be some mistake," Betty murmured anxiously. Cheryl rolled down her window, slowly and deliberately. "It's no mistake," she said, her voice calm and clear. "All the reservations have been canceled. Goodbye." "Cheryl, wait." Timothy's voice now had a hint of desperation. "It was just a joke. You know that, right?" But Cheryl had already started the engine. As she gripped the steering wheel, she caught one last glimpse in the rearview mirror. Her family stood there, frozen in shock. Madison's expensive boots sank into the snow. Betty called after her, but her voice faded into the cold wind. Without hesitation, Cheryl pulled away from the hotel, the snow-covered road stretching ahead of her. A single tear slipped down her cheek, not from sadness, but from relief. Her phone began ringing. "Timothy." She ignored it. Then another call. "Betty." She ignored that too. Messages flooded in. "Why would you do this? It's Christmas Eve. You embarrassed us. Will you refund the hotel costs?" At the last message, Cheryl let out a small laugh. In the end, their concerns were always about money. Never about love, never about family. Just calculations. Just appearances. Cheryl kept driving, leaving it all behind. Instead of heading home, she took a different road, toward Mark's penthouse. A sense of peace and clarity settled over her. She glanced in the rearview mirror again, and for the first time, she liked what she saw. The streetlights cast a soft glow on the falling snow, making the night feel quiet, almost magical. The empty back seat was surprisingly comforting. 3 hours later, Cheryl's Mercedes pulled into the underground parking garage of Mark's penthouse. As she stepped into the elevator, a warm feeling spread through her chest. She knew she was going to the right place. When she opened the penthouse door, she was greeted by warmth, the soft glow of the fireplace, the cozy light filling the room. And Mark. "Cheryl, are you okay?" His voice was full of genuine concern. Cheryl met his eyes and, for the first time in a long time, she truly smiled. "Actually, I've never felt better." "I feel relieved," Cheryl said softly. Mark listened quietly as he poured 2 glasses of wine. Cheryl told him everything: Timothy's cruel smile, Betty's guilty silence, and the decision she had made. "You did the right thing," Mark assured her as he sat on the sofa near the fireplace. Cheryl stared at the wine glass in her hand. "But I ruined their Christmas," she muttered. "That's not true." Mark's voice was gentle but firm. "They ruined their own Christmas. You just chose to protect yourself." Tears filled Cheryl's eyes, not from sadness, but from relief. For years, she had carried a heavy burden. And now, finally, she was free. Her phone vibrated again. This time it was a message from John. "Because of your selfishness, you've embarrassed the entire family. Don't ever show your face again." Cheryl didn't even hesitate. She turned off her phone completely. Mark placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder, a warmth she had never felt from her own family. Cheryl gazed into the fireplace, her voice steady. Starting tomorrow, a new life begins. I won't let anyone control me anymore. Mark nodded silently. For Cheryl, this was the most meaningful Christmas Eve she had ever experienced. She hadn't lost her family. She had found herself. The diamond necklace from her father shimmered softly in the firelight, as if blessing her choice. The next morning, Christmas Day, Middletown was covered in a soft, white layer of snow. From Mark's penthouse, the view looked like a picture-perfect postcard, snow gently falling between the towering buildings, covering up yesterday's events like a fresh start. "Good morning, honey," Mark greeted her, already making coffee. The rich aroma of espresso filled the warm space. "I got a call from Skytop Gazebo this morning," Mark said quietly. "Your family made quite a scene." Cheryl stood by the window, a warm mug in her hands. "I figured as much," she replied calmly. "Timothy must have caused a commotion." She turned on her phone, and within seconds, countless notifications flooded the screen. 50-plus missed calls. Nearly 150 messages. Most were from Betty and Timothy, with a few from John. "Cheryl, do you think this is acceptable? You humiliated us in the hotel lobby. I'll never forgive you. How dare you treat us this way?" And then one last message from her mother. "We need to talk about money. Call me immediately." Cheryl let out a deep sigh and set her phone down. She didn't feel guilty. She didn't feel regret. Instead, she felt free. Mark wrapped his arms around her from behind, his warmth comforting and real. For the first time in a long time, Cheryl wasn't alone. And that, she realized, was the best Christmas gift of all. "I've made up my mind," Cheryl said, ready to face whatever came next. She felt strong and free, no longer weighed down by the past. Turning to Mark, she met his eyes with unshakable determination. "I'm cutting all ties with them," she said firmly. Mark nodded, his expression full of understanding and support. "Are you sure?" he asked gently. "After all, they are your family." "No, they're not," Cheryl answered without hesitation. "A real family loves and supports each other. They were just strangers who cared only about money." They moved to the breakfast table, where Mark had prepared croissants and scrambled eggs, a simple but heartfelt meal. Cheryl took a bite and smiled. This was happiness. This was what she had been searching for. Mark set down his coffee and looked at her seriously. "I have an idea, Cheryl." She raised an eyebrow. "What is it?" "Why don't we live together?" For a moment, Cheryl was speechless. Outside the window, snowflakes fell silently from the sky. "Let's start a new life together," Mark said. Tears filled Cheryl's eyes, not from sadness, but from pure joy. The burdens she had carried for so long were finally gone. And, in their place, she had found something real. "Yes," she whispered, smiling. "That sounds wonderful." Just then, her phone rang again. The screen flashed Mom. Cheryl didn't hesitate. She picked up the phone, blocked the number, then did the same for Timothy and John. She exhaled deeply, feeling lighter than ever. "I've taken a new step," she said, her voice clear and steady. Mark smiled warmly. "I'm proud of you." A few weeks later, mid-January, Middletown was hit by a severe cold wave. From her office window, Cheryl watched the city shiver under the icy wind. Then, her intercom buzzed. "Ms. Miller, there's a visitor for you in the lobby," her secretary said. "A Mrs. Betty White." Cheryl's hands froze over her keyboard. Betty White. It was the first time she had heard her mother's name since Christmas Eve. She took a steady breath. "Understood. I'll be right there." In the lobby, Cheryl's high heels echoed on the marble floor as she walked forward. Her mother sat on a visitor's sofa, but she looked different. Gone was the flashy designer clothing. Instead, she wore a plain gray coat, her makeup faded, her face tired and worn. "May I come in?" Betty's voice had none of its usual sharpness or arrogance. Cheryl hesitated, then gave a small nod. Silently, she led her mother to the elevator. Upstairs, Cheryl gestured toward the sofa in the reception area. Outside, light snow swirled in the winter air. Her mother took a deep breath. "I came here because I needed to talk," Cheryl's mother said softly. She sat across from Cheryl, a cup of coffee between them. "We've reached our limit." Cheryl wasn't surprised. She had expected this. After years of reckless spending, her father's inheritance was almost gone. Her stepfather's real estate investments had failed, leaving them deep in debt. Timothy was struggling too. He couldn't afford his new car payments and was falling behind on rent. "We need help," her mother said, her voice trembling. Cheryl remained calm. "Mom, is this about money?" Her mother hesitated. "Yes," she admitted. "For our living expenses, Timothy's car loan, and—" "Mom, that's enough." Cheryl cut her off firmly. "I'm not the family bank anymore. I've chosen to live my own life." Her mother's face fell, but Cheryl's decision was final. "But we're family," Betty said desperately. Cheryl sighed. "What does family really mean?" she asked quietly. "On Christmas, you all treated me like a chauffeur. You stood by while Timothy smirked at me. Is that what family does?" The room fell into a heavy silence. "Listen, Cheryl," her mother whispered, tears in her eyes. "I regret what happened that day, but I'm really struggling. I need your help." Cheryl slowly stood up and walked toward the window. In the distance, she could see the building her father once managed. She kept her back turned as she spoke. "Mom, go home." Her voice was steady. "And don't come back. My life is mine now." A long silence filled the room. Her mother seemed like she wanted to say something, but in the end, she simply stood up and left. The sound of the door closing echoed in the room. Cheryl let out a deep sigh. She returned to her desk and touched the necklace her father had given her. Strangely, the weight in her chest felt a little lighter. Months passed, and spring arrived in Middletown. From Mark's penthouse, the city looked completely different. The park below was full of cherry blossoms, their soft pink petals dancing in the breeze. Cheryl held a cup of morning coffee, staring at the beautiful scene. Mark's voice broke the silence. "Cheryl, what are you thinking about?" She turned and smiled at him. "Just everything," she said. "So much has changed in these 4 months."
And it was true.
She had announced her engagement to Mark. She had been promoted to department head, leading a new investment team. Her talents were finally being recognized. She hadn't heard from her mother at all. Timothy's flashy social media posts had vanished. Later, she learned from a colleague that they had moved from their luxury apartment to a much smaller one. Now, they were living a simpler life. Mark stepped beside her, watching the cherry blossoms. "Any regrets?" he asked. Cheryl looked at the blooming trees, the city shining in the sunlight. She smiled. "None at all. This is the life I chose." Cheryl smiled as she touched the necklace her father had given her. "I've made my choice," she said firmly. She had come to understand something important. Real family isn't just about blood. It's about love, support, and understanding. That evening, Cheryl and Mark dined at the same elegant restaurant where they had first met. As the city lights sparkled outside, Mark leaned forward, excitement in his eyes. "I have big news," he said. "We're expanding with a new hotel chain on the West Coast." He took a deep breath before adding, "And I want you to be part of it as our investment advisor." Cheryl didn't hesitate. "Of course," she said with a confident nod. Everything in her life, work, love, and happiness, was finally in balance. She felt it deep inside. This was the start of something new. Cheryl raised her glass of wine. "To our future." Mark smiled, lifting his glass to meet hers. The soft chime of the glasses touching sounded like the first note of a brand new chapter.